This
And so just
conference will
tell me
now be
first off,
recorded.
share with us how you personally got in the fight, because this is kind of a personal issue for you, and tell us how you got in that fight.
Well, for all that are listening, in 2009 is when I got involved, and you were part of it, Minta. In 2009, which wasn't that long ago, not many people knew what human trafficking was. And they got it mixed up with human smuggling, immigration issues, and not many folks were focused on what human trafficking was. And basically, the way I got impacted is I went to a movie with my daughter in 2009. It was the movie Taken. And we watched it, and we kind of walked away saying, "Is this real, or is this just some Hollywood deal?" And then I found out the committee that I was in charge of oversaw the civil laws relating to human trafficking in Texas. And we had a hearing, and we had families from all over the state. And it impacted me because you learn that trafficking, let me just call it what it is. It's prostitution and slavery of children. And that's what I want people to remember. It's prostitution and slavery of children. There is nothing worse. And it doesn't need to be in this state. Doesn't need to be in the nation, doesn't need to be in the world. So then you and I and a small group started meeting, and you gave me a lot of information. And then our friendship has developed over the years. And basically, we had, as you remember, in 2009 to 2011, we had to keep the focus on human trafficking rather than getting off in non-human trafficking issues. Today, it has pretty good awareness, but I'll just be blunt. I think there's a lot of talk and no walk. I think everybody likes to bring it up during, certain seasons, but you got to move. You got to do something. We've got prostitution and enslaving kids. That's not stopping. And, I kind of get frustrated because I've seen the personal examples. You've seen the personal examples. People feel it. And then sometimes we're not, the fight against human trafficking is not on the front burner.
Right.
And so my argument to those that want to get involved is I want it to be a front burner till we get something done. Now, I will say that with your help, New Life's help, a lot of our anti-human trafficking groups locally, we were able to make an impact on laws. We've been able to get new statistics. See, a lot of people don't know, Minta, which you and I know John knows. Well, who's prosecuting these? If you don't see any prosecutions, then nothing's happening. So we were able to change a lot of the laws to show where there was prosecution. And as you know, Nueces had one of the first prosecutions in this area. And what a lot of people don't know is the coastal bend has been quite an impact statewide on anti-human trafficking.
Couple of other things. Tell us a little bit more about that, because you're right. A lot of people don't realize, and we honestly probably really fall short in talking about how the coastal bend has really impacted the anti-trafficking movement in such a positive way.
Absolutely. So let me give some examples. When we started this, you, me, and others in 2009, we started providing conferences for people to attend. And it was a great opportunity to explain what is human trafficking. And we were able to send messages out that families, people who are impacted, have somebody to go talk to. That was the Coastal Bend igniting that issue. And then early on, because of the Coastal Bend, and you were right there, we were able to get the legislature to pass the interim study to study anti-human trafficking and how to fix it. Now, I'm going to compliment Representative Sophronia Thompson from Houston, who's been a big, big advocate with us in this region, and she's been here to support us. So Houston and the Coastal Bend have really done a good job. But we did the study that started setting up the laws that are to be passed. And one of them was data collection. And that sounds boring. However, if you don't look at the counties, there's 254 counties in the state of Texas. If you don't start doing an analysis on which counties are impacted or where the movement is occurring, then you don't really get to focus. And a lot of those laws came from the Coastal Bend. The issue, which you're frustrated and I'm frustrated, is a lot of times people will not prosecute human trafficking. They just, charge them with prostitution. Well, that doesn't help the victim. That doesn't help the victim at all. Then they get hit again. So we've been able to clarify in the law human trafficking so you can stop trafficking and not let people off on minor sort of things. So that's kind of a general summary of what emanated from the Coastal Bend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We had Kirsten Melton, who had been with the Attorney General's office, was our guest a couple of weeks ago, and she reminded us also of the integral part that Corpus Christi had in shutting down Backpage.com, which was really the online market in which children were sold. And so there's another kind of feather in our cap, so to say, for this region. Of course, I will say Michelle Putnam, the Assistant District Attorney, has done a phenomenal job in helping to prosecute these cases. Let me change gears a little bit, but since we're kind of talking about some legislative stuff, I'm a little off script here, but it came to mind. So Nevada was the first state in the country to declare pornography I think it's called a national health crisis. And because of that, people that are addicted to pornography can receive, like funding for medical issues associated with that, and in getting recovery, like mental health recovery for that. And I always say that really the root of the problem that we're dealing with is rooted in pornography. And I'm just wondering, is there any talk in the state of Texas about declaring it a health crisis in our state?
All right, so to give everybody a procedural, U.S. Congress meets all the time. They meet all year round. The legislature meets basically 140 days every 2 years unless there's a special session. So we won't start meeting till January. So this coming January, we go in for 4 to 5 months. Now, what we're doing right now is holding hearings and doing study groups to come up with the legislation. So let's take pornography. Unfortunately, everybody has been slow started because of COVID-19 and the coronavirus. So not only the issues we're discussing, but across the board, everything has been slowed because of this situation. However, between this summer and fall, we will start hearing criminal jurisprudence and civil jurisprudence issues. I have not heard recently the pornography issue, but I'm sure it will be raised. And as you're aware, I currently sit on the House Committee of Criminal Jurisprudence. And so I will be willing and able to provide that issue for them to take a look at during the fall. So haven't heard anything concrete, but that's just because, it's just happened recently, this coronavirus. But you'll start seeing a rush to work, and I'll put that on the list. And I should note that you're going to hear budget cuts in the state because of the coronavirus. But a good thing, mental health is not in the focus at all right now. It's other things. So we have a good opportunity to look at that.
Okay, that's encouraging, very encouraging. So let's talk a little bit about this executive summary that just came out that is part of the Human Trafficking Prevention Coordinating Council. I think your office actually sent this over to me. It's part of a Senate Bill 72. So I think we've got it up on the screen.
Right. And your question?
Just tell me a little bit about it, kind of how this came to pass,
During the last legislative session, and what happens is, just so everybody knows, there's the Texas Senate, there's the Texas House, and a lot of times both bodies share. They come up with several proposals, and the Senate adopts some, and then the House adopts some, but both bodies have to agree. This particular executive summary that you have up, a coalition was created, and it was created to basically be overseen by the Texas Attorney General's office, who's very helpful on the issue and has been helpful to our area. So what you're going to see is probably sometime in June time period, again going into fall, you're going to see this group that's coordinated by the Attorney General's office going into our areas, going across the state, asking for issues that we want to raise in the legislature, and like you have on this, prevent and prosecute and provide support. They're also going to be getting input and fact information in these categories so that they can start help instituting through things like rules and things like that.
Okay, all right. I know that also one of the governor's initiatives for fighting human trafficking was on the demand side, looking at sexually oriented businesses. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what the plans are as far as looking at those businesses and shutting them down? I kind of what comes to mind for me are these illicit massage parlors that seem to have the ability to pop up just about anywhere.
Well, let's take an example of Texas Attorney General. What we, as you saw the back page, you gave the example earlier. Let me tell you how bad this was. You have massage parlors that are basically, just avoiding the law. You have legitimate groups, but you all have people that exploit it. It was so bad that not only were they soliciting these groups on the internet, they even put a billboard up right in front of everybody. And so one of the things we're going to do is to crack down through the Attorney General that you don't solicit that way. But I want your listeners to know it was that bold. Not only internet solicitation, putting it on a billboard. So where are we going on this? What we're really going to see is what they're trying to do is to cut off these sources. They're also trying to focus, if this is an illegitimate business and you're exploiting it, it's really human trafficking, and the crackdown should occur. And you don't need a gray area. You're either violating the law or you're not. And if you're violating it in any way, shape, or form, I think you're going to see the governor, the attorney general, the state of Texas cracking down. So that's where the focus is going. And they're trying to send the message, be a legitimate operation or you fall under these sort of new prosecution guidelines.
Well, that's really encouraging. I actually had the opportunity. I saw that billboard that you're referring to right on Interstate 35 and about downtown Austin. And I remember snapping a picture of it and sending it to the governor's sex trafficking team to alert them that this was happening. But on the other side, on the positive side of the billboard, there's now and you may be familiar with this, but there's now a state wide campaign in conjunction with the Advertising Federation and the governor's sex trafficking team, where they have put up anti-trafficking billboards across the state that are really geared towards I think the campaign's called Have You Seen Me? And actually, Tina, could you hand me the little poster back there? And it's just such a positive thing, and we're starting to see these types of things in roadside bathrooms on the back of the doors. So I'm going to say, the state of Texas does an amazing job on fighting this. The Shared Hope International grades every state in the nation every year on how well they're doing to fight human trafficking. And because of people like you, Representative Hunter, we consistently score as one of the highest states in the nation in fighting this crime. So really just kudos to you in all that you do to make sure this isn't happening in the state of Texas, and that we are setting an example for the other states.
Well, thank you. But the interesting thing is, I'm glad Texas is being a leader, and we work with you and others. But what that message is, the other states need to catch up to Texas. We need to do everything we can. Everybody, my concern, Minta, and I hope your listeners hear this, is we keep explaining and educating about anti-human trafficking. We cannot let it ever get off the front burner. Once we go quiet, once we take it off the front burner, it just explodes again. So we got to keep shining the light on this to get rid of it.
And you do a great job of doing that. You certainly, as a legislator, it's always part of your platform and your conversations when you're speaking to groups. And so kudos to you for helping to keep that in the limelight, so to say, because you're right. We do need to educate, and when people forget about it if we don't remind them about it. And people, once they know it, they can't unknow it, and they end up seeing a lot more and sharing it. And when we first started talking about this in 2009, 2010, people just thought this was an international issue. And so I feel like we've come a long way, even though at times it might seem slow, but if we sit and think about the distance that's been covered, I mean, really, it's been phenomenal. So I'm excited about what's happening here in the state and everything that the governor and the attorney general and the legislature is doing. I will point out that Senator Sophronia Thompson is actually a Democrat. So this is truly just shows everybody that this is not a party issue. This is a human rights issue, and that nobody's against it, thank goodness. We all want to see an end to really what you say, the prostituting of children, it's the raping of children. I mean, if we really want to get honest about it, it is just sexually abusing children for money. And so we cannot allow that to happen in our state, and we can't allow the word trafficking or sex trafficking to just sort of get mulled over as an everyday word. And
You're
so
right. You're right.
So I think to sometimes not to be harsh and crude, but to keep people realizing really how awful this crime is.
Well, and the other thing to highlight, Minta, is there's two sections of this. There's one, just like you said, the rape, prostitution. There's slavery.
Mm-hmm.
The other deal is they're taking children and turning them into slaves. And I mean, it's awful. I mean, these are things you hear about, but are underneath our noses. Mm-hmm. And so we have to explain the atrocity to motivate to get rid of. And folks like you, New Life, we can go all through the groups, have done a great job of exposing, educating, and basically focusing so we can stop it. And I want to encourage her. Coastal Bend has been a big advocate in anti-human trafficking awareness, education, and enforcement. If we can keep that message going to other areas, we're going to make an impact across everywhere.
Amen. That's so true. That's so true. One thing that we do try to really keep in the forefront are the indicators to how to recognize when this crime is happening. Because so often it is, like you said, hidden in plain sight. People don't recognize it. But once they know the signs, then of course people are a lot more in tune and in key. And then just to give them the tools on what to do if they suspect something is happening, which of course would be to call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is 1-888-737-3888. I say that right? I think I did. Okay, well, so let me just, we're gonna get to some questions here in just one second, but I have one last question for you. What could the average citizen do to combat this crime?
Well, for everybody listening, if you think of anything suspicious, you need to report it. And like you said, you gave them a hotline, but they need to talk to you. You know, New Life needs to know. They need to talk to your legislators. They need to talk to law enforcement. Now, I will tell you, there are a lot of folks that don't want to because they feel bothered about the situation. We have got to take that stigma away. When we are losing children to this multi-billion dollar industry, it's worth knowing. And there are, you know, certain areas that are hot spots versus others, but it moves around. That's why they're called traffickers. They're moving around to all these areas. Could be silent one day and be very, very bothersome the next. So the first thing citizens can do is please alert a law enforcement, your public officials, groups like New Life, because even though you might not think it's there, it sure could be. Another is that if you have ideas or thoughts on laws for the state, let me know. The time's right now. The best laws come from people. And if you have ideas, contact my office, contact you, Minta. Let us know how we can do better or how we can improve the law. And the other thing is to join the various conferences locally, plug in. My office is a resource. Your office is a resource. We need to do everything we can to motivate folks to get involved, volunteer, provide input, attend. But to me, it's not a level of people, it's all the people. We should all be doing this together, one big team.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was visiting with a district attorney from a different county, and he brought to light something I had never considered was an avenue for traffickers, and that was after Hurricane Harvey hit. Of course, we saw labor trafficking happening on construction crews, but aside from that, there was also sex trafficking happening in little bars, say in Refugio, where the construction workers were taken to stay while they're rebuilding in Rockport or Port Aransas and those areas. But suddenly there are just this influx of all of these girls and, you know, young girls being brought into these areas for those construction workers. And it just, you know, I don't know why I still get surprised at these things, but you know, I think I've heard just about everything, but you know what? I know there's so much I have no clue about. And so that to me was horrifying to learn that they just even take advantage of a natural disaster. I mean, just absolutely that just opportunist traffickers are certainly, you know, opportunists to make money wherever they can, no matter what the situation. So I like I said, just was so surprised to hear that was going on.
It just shows you, you know, unfortunately during disasters, that's sometimes when folks get preyed upon the most. And, you know, that's another reason you see anything suspicious, report it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, yeah, just, you know, in that situation too, just reporting that suddenly there's this influx of people in our small little town that weren't here, what's going on, and just kind of just another idea to help people understand this crime and what it can look like. So,
Correct.
well, if we don't have any questions, then I think I just appreciate you joining us today.
Sure.
Part of this, I do apologize for the technical difficulties to everybody that joined us last week, but and to you too, Representative Hunter. But thank you so much for being so gracious
Absolutely.
to come back and join us today. I do appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you. It's been a while.
You got it. We'll be out of this pretty soon. Everybody have a great weekend.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, off. On. I'm off.